A big talking point that also transpired this week following the mining in Indaba. South Africa was built on mining, but women have long been underrepresented in the very industry that powers our economy. That is now changing. We're at the Women Economic Assembly Mining in Indaba side event in Cape Town. Under the theme, She Mines the Future, from pit to port, leaders are pushing for real access to funding, procurement, ownership across the mining value chain. And so today, we're asking just how far have women truly come in mining and what must change to secure their place from pit to port. We're going to be joined by Sixolile Ngcobo, chairperson of the South African Women in Mining Association, as well as Getrude Marape, co-leader of the Women Economic Assembly. Ladies, good morning. Good afternoon. And thank you so much for your time on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Sixolile, I'm going to start with you. Women currently employed in the mining, South Africa's mining sector. Paint that picture for us. We're saying times are changing, but how has that number changed, perhaps over the past decade?
Okay. Thank you for having us on this show to speak about something that is really has been around for a very long time. So I want to first and foremost say I'm Sixolile Ngcobo from the World Health Company. I have worked to support the Minerals Council, particularly the women in mining. So I'm not the chairperson. I heard you earlier on referring to me as the chairperson. Yes.
Okay.
I just want to. So I'm a business owner myself. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that correction.
From that perspective, thank you so much, because my work actually is mirrored on that very fact that when the mining sector was designed, women were never part of the workforce. There was never a thought that women will ever enter that workforce. So so there are barriers of just entry as a worker. There are barriers of entry as a woman-owned entity or enterprise who wants to do business with the mining sector. But let me come back to the softer issues. Most people call it soft issues that are part of why women are not growing in numbers in the mining sector. We have quite a lot of bias around women, where even when the women do enter the world of work in mining, they find themselves facing discrimination internally. They find themselves facing harassment, even sometimes violence that just says to them, you actually don't belong in the mining environment. And this is from boardrooms to even underground, where you find even the architecture underground doesn't actually accommodate a woman to be in that type of a workspace. So in that sense, then it says we have policies in place that says women can work anywhere, women can enterprise and trade anywhere. But we are at a point where we need to make sure that those policies are actually tangible. They make the world of work easy for women, whether women come into the world of work as employees or whether women come into the world of work as women-owned enterprises. We need to level the ground from a perspective of inclusion, because if we have policies and then we are not looking at inclusion, belonging, and also embracing the diversity that women come with in this world of work called the mining sector, we are not really going to have women come in and stay. We'll have women come in, see that there's trouble, they are not accommodated, they feel unsafe, they feel vulnerable, and then they go off somewhere else as well. So we want to make sure that the environment is conducive for women to trade and be employable within the mining sector.
You know, just to your point, as I expand, before we bring Gertrude into the conversation, perhaps if we look at the percentage of mining rights or licenses in South Africa, how much are held by women or women-owned companies? Talk to us about that reality, the structural barriers that prevent women now from scaling, from employees to mine owners as well, and even just the representation when it comes to executive, when it comes to board-level positions as well in major mining companies. What the numbers are reflecting on that front as well?
Those numbers are sitting between 2 and 3%. And have been sitting there for a very long time. Even when you look at the Employment Equity Commission, who track these numbers, you will see that we are not going anywhere. So which basically mean we do have women as workers, but we don't have many women as executives. And the more women we don't have as executives, that is where also the problem is, because then some of the things that are softer issues, they need a champion who is in a decision-making position, a champion who's able to make a decision and follow it even beyond being just complying to the policies or the practices that they need to comply to. So that is actually one area where we speak about placing women in decision-making positions. But in the mining sector, if you were to count 5 mining companies, you'll find that in that 5, maybe 1 is actually headed by a female.
See,
So that's still.
Sixolile, thank you for that, because now, Gertrude, let's bring into the conversation. When we're looking at how many women-owned businesses are currently participating in mining-related value chains, right? This is across the Women's Economic Assembly initiatives. What is that reality? Procurement value in rands that have been unlocked for women-owned enterprises within the mining sector so far, how it's been translated. Quantify that for us.
Okay, thanks for that question. Yeah, so there is a study that was done recently by the Minerals Council, where they were basically looking at getting their members to start looking at reporting as well, how much of the procurement spend actually went to women. And I think if you look at the report, that was the 2023-2024 financial report, out of the 271 billion rand that was spent on procurement, 10.9% was spent on mining goods, which actually went to women, and about 14% of the procurement that was spent on services actually went to women. So you would see that the numbers are still relatively low, but obviously there are interventions, I think, from their side as well, that they're monitoring it to see what other interventions can be put in place to actually to try and increase those numbers. And one of the things that they are, I think quite a number of organizations are also putting in place is to also obviously assist women with, for example, to be procurement ready, but also there's also a financing challenge, funding challenge, because you recall that obviously mining industry is a very capital intensive industry. It's a very risky industry. And currently the funding institution, commercial banks, for example, when they fund a women-owned business, obviously they are funding to earn a return. And obviously with the mining industry being capital intensive and risky, it can take time before any commercial bank can realize a return. So what sort of like interventions that are needed, I think, to try and improve on these numbers, it will require some kind of like a blended financing model, which will basically take into consideration the risk that comes with the mining, the business of mining, and also the time that it takes for an entrepreneur, for example, to start to realize a return.
Yeah. Time, capital intensive sector as well. Even if we look at what was happening on the sidelines, the work that had been done whilst the mining in Indaba was happening. I mean, we're obviously trying to see how effective it is to assist SMMEs, new players as well. So Gertrude, how do you ensure that the commitments that we saw being pledged and made at high level platforms like the mining in Indaba then translate into contracts on the ground, the pace, the rate that's also occurring, and the concerns?
Yes. So one of the things that we were doing, obviously, through the engagement that we had along the the site event, was basically to then strengthen the relationship and the partnership between the women-owned businesses and the mining companies, but also for women to know where to find opportunities. For example, you look at companies like Zara that have also now availed an interest-free loan, which can be available to entrepreneurs. And then also, for example, they've also now availed one of their the lands that they have rehabilitated for farming. So those are the opportunities that are available. And also Transnet, again, I think the engagement that we've had, the conversations that we've had with Transnet, now that they've availed their rail line to private operators, there are opportunities there available for women. So with these partnerships that now we have basically entered into with the mining companies and also, for example, Transnet, we are hopeful that it will unlock additional opportunities for women.
Well, thank you for those remarks as well. Sixolile, as we bring it back into the conversation, we look at the access of funding for women who want to enter exploration, junior mining endeavors as well. What's been the reality on that front, given that Gertrude's now alluded to how capital intensive it is and time intensive it is as well, but also the role that mentorship plays in understanding the technical training that goes into it and some of the measurable outcomes that need to be looked at on that front as well.
So I guess when it comes to that front, first and foremost, women come into this game very late, coming without any collateral sometimes because they just decided that they want to be an entrepreneur. So it's also about how do we change what becomes collateral, redesign what we want women to bring on board when we're going to be funding them, because they are not starting from the same point as their male counterparts. So that is the first thing. That redesign becomes very important because what it does, it says any entrepreneur, it's possible to scale up. It's even possible to just even start up. That is the first one. The second one, when it comes to the difference between a loan and a loan that you make that you need to pay and something that just gets given to you as a startup that you don't have to pay. So in 2013, I engaged in a study, a cross-country study, where I looked at how actually when you work with SMEs, how do you make sure that you enable the financial side of things? So there is this benefit of writing off the start of funding for an SME, because then when you do that, you give them the opportunity to do their research and development, go back and try to the idea, refine the idea to a point that it becomes an idea that is scalable and an idea that is profitable. And I think that's one area that we need to do a lot in South Africa, where we fund for R&D, which is research and development for small, medium enterprises, so that then they can be able to, once they enter the market, they already have perfected what they want to be scaling up. And also they've tested how it becomes a fundable business venture with all maybe of the risks being taken out of the way. And then the third one is really when we say we want to have women in business or women in mining, can we then, the funding, can we almost, what do you call it, set aside? I still believe in set asides,
Okay.
set aside for business opportunity, number one, so that women are playing in a field that is safe for them to play. And then once they've practiced, then they go into the next bigger one. But if we really want to segment the economy for everyone to participate, I still believe in set asides. So depending on what is your annual income as a business, we know you play in this, maybe this company can say the 30% of our procurement is for startups that are up to this amount of money. And then the 70% is for anyone who's up to this. In that way, we set aside that playing field of 30% of all these mining companies or any other businesses that want to do business with women-owned entities, so that then we know that something is happening. And then we move up to 40%, we move up to
Okay.
50%. Actually, we move up to 100%, where we find women-owned entities in all the spheres.
So we obviously tracking that acceleration. I think, Gertrude, just as we wrap up, for interest of time, closing remark when it comes to your expectations for the industry to secure women participating in mining and also making it an enabling environment for them to thrive.
Yeah, I think from our side, what we looking for is, obviously we do recognize and acknowledge the interventions that they've made, obviously, but the numbers, they're still low. So what we would like to see is continuous interventions being put in place, working closely with the women in mining, so that we continuously see this increase in procurement spend on women-owned businesses. And also, I think with looking at, I think also from the funders as well, we obviously need to look at blended funding models that can actually assist the women entrepreneurs to be able to participate across the mine value chain. and so that they're able to scale up. Because currently, I think the funders, as my colleague mentioned, Sixolile, sometimes women, they just need funding just to start up. Things like grants, which can actually help them just to start. So I think for us is to say, let's continue to work together to see what other interventions can we put in place to improve on challenges that are still remaining, that are still preventing women from fully participating in the mine value chain.
Sixolile Ngcobo as well as Gertrude Marape. Thank you to the both of you for your time and for weighing in. Following the mining in Indaba, of course, what transpired, the pledges, but how this practically gets implemented to ensure that there is an enabling environment for women to thrive and participate in. Again, thank you for being part of this conversation.